While millions of people binge shows, reread novels, replay story-driven games, and feel genuinely heartbroken when a fictional character dies, there's a massive group of people who just don't understand it at all. They say things like, "It's not real. Why are you crying over a character?" But psychology and neuroscience tell a very different story. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see people who get emotionally attached to fictional characters, and maybe even how you see yourself. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Getting attached to fictional characters doesn't mean you're childish. It doesn't mean you're emotionally weak. And it definitely doesn't mean you're detached from reality. In fact, it often means the opposite. There is something very specific happening in your brain, something that people who don't form these attachments often experience far less intensely. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do fictional characters feel real to some people? Your brain didn't evolve to understand fiction. It evolved to understand stories. For most of human history, stories weren't entertainment, they were survival tools. They taught morals, warned of danger, explained the world, and bonded groups together. And the brain learned one powerful shortcut: if a story feels emotionally coherent, treat it as real. So when you follow a character long enough, watching their struggles, fears, growth, and failures, your brain starts processing them the same way it processes real people. This isn't poetic. It's neurological. Studies show that when people think about fictional characters they care about, the same brain regions activate as when they think about close friends. Your brain doesn't ask, "Is this real?" It asks, "Is this emotionally meaningful?" And if the answer is yes, the bond forms. But here's where it gets interesting. People who get deeply attached to fictional characters often score higher in empathic imagination, the ability to vividly simulate other people's inner worlds. They don't just watch characters. They experience them. They feel the embarrassment, the loss, the hope. For them, fiction isn't escapism, it's emotional rehearsal. But wait, it gets weirder. There's a psychological concept called parasocial attachment. It describes one-sided emotional bonds where one party is unaware of the other, like with celebrities, creators, or fictional characters. And here's the key part. Parasocial bonds form strongest when real-life emotional needs are unmet. Not because someone is broken, but because the brain is doing what it always does, seeking connection, safety, and understanding. Fictional characters are uniquely powerful because they're predictable and safe. They won't reject you. They won't misunderstand you. They won't leave unless the story demands it. For someone who's felt misunderstood, lonely, emotionally neglected, or overwhelmed by real relationships, fictional characters offer something rare: connection without risk. And that doesn't make someone weak. It makes them adaptive. But there's another layer most people miss. People who attach strongly to fictional characters often have high emotional openness and low emotional defensiveness. They allow themselves to feel deeply, even when it hurts. Many people don't attach to fictional characters not because they're more rational, but because they've learned to shut emotional doors to protect themselves. So when someone says, "I don't get how you can care so much about someone who isn't real," what they're really saying is, "My brain doesn't allow emotional immersion that easily." And that's not superiority. That's just difference. Now let's talk about the part that makes people uncomfortable. Yes, fictional attachment can sometimes act as a substitute for real connection. Yes, it can become avoidance. But that's not the default. For many people, fictional characters serve as emotional mirrors. They help people understand their own feelings, process trauma, safely explore identities they can't yet express, learn how emotions work. Psychologists call this symbolic emotional processing. You're not escaping reality. You're learning how to survive it. And here's something rarely acknowledged. People who form strong bonds with fictional characters often have richer inner worlds. Their minds are active even in silence. They don't require constant stimulation from the outside. They can sit alone and still feel full. That scares people who rely on external validation. But let's be honest about another truth. Not all fictional attachments are healthy. When someone replaces all real connection with imaginary ones, that's not depth, that's protection taken too far. But the existence of misuse doesn't invalidate the mechanism. Fire can cook food or burn a house. Same tool, different outcome. And this explains why people argue so fiercely about this topic. To some people, emotional investment requires reciprocity. If it's not real, it's pointless. To others, emotional investment is about meaning, not realism. One group says, it's fake. The other says, it felt real to me. Both are correct, depending on how your brain constructs reality. So what does all this mean? If you get attached to fictional characters, it doesn't mean you're immature. It doesn't mean you're detached from life. It often means you feel deeply, you imagine vividly, you connect intensely, you allow stories to change you. Your brain is wired for emotional resonance, not emotional distance. And the next time someone laughs at you for caring about a fictional character, remember this: humans don't live by facts alone, they live by meaning. And sometimes, the most meaningful experiences don't come from what's real, but from what reveals something real inside you. If this resonated with you, you'll probably love understanding why some people feel emotions more intensely than others, and why that sensitivity might actually be your greatest strength.